In cinematic works dedicated to war, episodes of capturing a tongue by reconnaissance groups are often portrayed from two completely opposite perspectives. Either as an example of impeccably coordinated and lightning-fast work, or as a complete and crushing failure due to betrayal or a carefully planned ambush. And of course, all of this is presented in the most spectacular and effective manner. Directors and screenwriters, as a rule, carefully avoid showing those ridiculous, comical, and sometimes absurd situations that could very likely occur in a real combat environment, with its unpredictability and constant lack of necessary resources. Yevgeny Ivanovich Foken, born in 1923 in the quiet village of Sarai in the Ryazan region, voluntarily decided to join the ranks of the valiant Red Army in 1942. He was enlisted as a scout in a reconnaissance platoon, skillfully commanded by a hero of the Soviet Union, Vladimir Dushinsky. As part of the 96th Guards separate reconnaissance company of the 92nd Guards Rifle Division of the 37th Army, during his difficult service, he was wounded twice in fierce battles and suffered a concussion, and took direct part in numerous reconnaissance operations in the enemy's rear, including the capture of tongues of strategic value. It is worth noting that not all of these operations went smoothly and ended in complete success. We ask you from the bottom of our hearts to subscribe to our channel and not to skimp on a like, so that you have the opportunity to learn more fascinating stories about the bloody Second World War and to get acquainted with the authentic opinions of participants in those tragic events from both opposing sides, in order to form your own objective picture of what was happening. At the beginning of the harsh winter of 1943, the reconnaissance company in which Foken served was stationed on the territory of war-torn Ukraine. The first long-awaited snow fell, and unfortunately, winter camouflage coats had not yet been delivered to the supply depots in time. However, despite this unfortunate circumstance, it was vital for the scouts to move deep into the enemy's rear to carry out an operation to capture such a valuable tongue, to go on such a responsible mission in their summer uniforms, which, like a beacon, stood out clearly against the pristine white background of the snow, would have been tantamount to signing their own death warrant, which, in the conditions of a real war, was simply unacceptable. And then the resourceful and quick-witted Sergeant Major found a seemingly completely non-trivial way out of the difficult situation, issuing the scouts white underwear of a very impressive, even gigantic size. As Foken recalled with a smile, the Sergeant Major, sincerely and wholeheartedly striving to somehow ease their difficult and very dangerous task, managed to literally snatch 24 sets of underwear from the warehouse. Huge, white long johns and spacious shirts, the scouts, having absolutely no other choice, were forced, grudgingly, to agree to such a questionable solution because, as the wise saying goes, in the absence of fish, even cancer becomes a fish, according to Foken himself in these improvised costumes. They looked more like some outlandish deep-sea divers who had arrived from another planet. Wrapping their hats and automatic weapons in white bandages that they could find, they anxiously set off at night to carry out the task assigned by the command. Having crossed the treacherous front line, the scouts, without any particular problems or incidents, reached the enemy's trenches and carefully fortified bunkers, and soon came across a well-camouflaged, skillfully equipped dugout. However, to their great surprise, there was no one inside. Only a time-worn telephone from which incomprehensible fragments of German speech could be heard, which made it clear that enemy signalmen were nearby. But in the dugout, among other things, a German overcoat hung, and on the table a candle stub was burning out, crackling, which indicated that someone had been here very recently. Apparently, the signalman who was usually stationed here had left for some urgent business, leaving his workplace unattended. After weighing all the pros and cons, an operational decision was made to set up an ambush right at the entrance to the dugout, waiting for the return of this very signalman. The German returned quite quickly, carrying provisions from the field kitchen, but approaching the dugout closely, for some inexplicable reason, he suddenly became nervous and began to look around suspiciously, as if sensing something was wrong, which confirmed his high level of professionalism. One of the experienced scouts immediately fired a warning burst over his head, and then, without losing a second, swiftly rushed to the German who had fallen to the ground from surprise and, with a skillful movement, disarmed him, depriving him of the opportunity to resist. To their surprise, the German soldier turned out to be a rather large and strong fellow, which caused additional concern. After tying his hands, the scouts, observing maximum caution, formed into a marching column, placing the captured German in the very center to exclude any surprises. After that, the group began to move back towards the front line. However, on the slippery ground from the freshly fallen snow, the German, for understandable reasons, kept falling, which greatly slowed down the group's advance. Soon the scouts got quite tired of it, and in order to save time and energy, they decided to untie his hands, placing the obligation on him to behave properly. This, as it turned out later, turned out to be a huge and extremely unfortunate mistake, which almost led to the complete failure of the entire operation. Ahead was the German forward edge of defense, which unfortunately had to be overcome with a fight showing courage and fearlessness. A sharp shout, "Halt!" rang out, in response to which the scouts, without a moment's hesitation, threw grenades at the German trench to suppress the enemy's firepower. Dividing into small mobile groups of 2 or 3 people, they began to desperately break through the German defensive positions, engaging in fierce firefights. And it was at this very tense moment that something completely unexpected, extremely curious, and at the same time unfortunate happened. According to Foken's vivid memories, he clearly saw a man running ahead, followed by another one who was falling on the slippery ground, then getting back on his feet, and then there was a deafening explosion of a thrown grenade. As it turned out later, after analyzing all the events, the following happened. The prisoner, demonstrating his acting skills and skillfully lulling the vigilance of his seemingly experienced guards, and taking advantage of the moment when Yevgeny unexpectedly slipped and comically fell on the icy ground, gave the lieutenant a treacherous kick with his boot right in the groin, and rushed to run with all his might. Like a sprinter in the Olympic Games, Yura, without wasting time, instantly jumped to his feet, chased after the rapidly fleeing German, and had almost grabbed him by the hem of his uniform. But at the most critical moment fell again, this time definitively, and was unable to catch up with the enemy. The blame, as it turned out, was a treacherously untied, or worse, torn tie on the long johns, which he had simply not noticed until that tragic moment. The long johns, as if on command, treacherously slipped down, and Yura was completely restricted in his movements, which made him helpless and vulnerable. The commander of the group, seeing the fleeing prisoner, threw a grenade in a fit of despair, which he hoped would stop the fugitive. But the German, after a close explosion, as if under the influence of adrenaline, only increased his speed, and Yura, who was trying to catch up with him, was unfortunately hit by a fragment and completely lost any possibility of continuing the chase, which finally demoralized the entire reconnaissance group. As a result, the scouts, reluctantly, returned empty, handed to the location of their unit, unable to fulfill the task assigned to them. Soon the whole division, as if by magic, already knew about the curious incident that happened at night, and when meeting with the unfortunate scouts, they were rewarded with ambiguous smirks, stinging taunts, and offensive teasing, which of course did not add to their optimism. But this awkward situation did not last very long. Soon the scouts, having gathered their will into a fist, again went on a combat mission, and this time, to their great joy, successfully delivered the tongue, as was planned by the command. During interrogation, the commander, showing due curiosity, decided to inquire what was known from the German side about the recent, very curious and unfortunate case. It turned out that the German who had so comically fled from them not only had safely returned to his own people, but had even been awarded a high award for his cunning and daring escape, which surprised everyone present. We decided with a bit of malicious pleasure to ask the prisoner if he knew anything about that ill-fated and very instructive incident. He smirked cunningly and smugly, and with obvious pleasure reported that the German who had escaped from them was not only awarded, but also received an unscheduled short leave to travel to his homeland, where his family was waiting for him. Thus, in a very unexpected way, their mistake benefited the enemy soldier, who unexpectedly earned an award for his comical but very skillful escape. As for Yevgeny Ivanovich Foken himself, who with visible pleasure and his inherent humor told this instructive and amusing story in his memoirs. After the end of the bloody war, he was, for understandable reasons, demobilized from the army due to his health condition, which unfortunately was undermined during heavy battles for his exploits. He was awarded the Order of the Patriotic War First Class, the Order of the Red Star, as well as many other combat awards, which undoubtedly testified to his courage and heroism. After graduating with honors from the Moscow Aerophotographic School and then the Moscow Institute of Geodesy, Aerial Photography and Cartography Engineers, he became a candidate of technical sciences, thus making a significant contribution to the development of science and technology. In the 80s of the last century, he began to actively publish in numerous regional and city newspapers, as well as in specialized publications of the Ministry of Defense and in the popular magazine Military History Archive. The comical incident he described was told by the veteran as before without any hesitation, with his characteristic humor, sincerely emphasizing that everything happened. And as they say, you can't take words out of a song. Goodbye. We were immensely glad to see you on our channel. Don't forget to leave your interesting comments. Give generous likes and subscribe to our exciting channel so you don't miss any new and informative episodes.